Together we'll cross the river. Brave the forest, brave. Take a lot.
Today we're talking about something that should be simple, but somehow isn't. The choice between love and fear, and how that choice plays out in real people's lives. We face countless choices throughout any given day, often without realizing it. And we should choose love at all times. But there are people in this world, people who claim to be motivated by love and protection, who are consistently choosing fear, control, and exclusion instead. And they're celebrating when children are afraid. Let me tell you about the Turmelle family from Pembroke, New Hampshire. Amy Manzelli, Chad Turmelle, and their 2 daughters, including 15-year-old Iris, who is transgender. This family just did something heartbreaking. They sold their home of nearly 20 years and moved to Maine because they no longer felt safe in New Hampshire. Think about what that means. They left behind a house they'd pour their hearts into. They turned an 8-minute drive to see grandparents and cousins into an hour-and-a-half journey. Their children are still very upset about it, according to their mother. This is a family in distress. These are children who are afraid and displaced from their home. If you truly cared about protecting children, this would break your heart. But there are people celebrating this family's departure. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and let me be clear, these people are not displaying anything that resembles libertarianism, posted a tweet that said something along the lines of, "The more in danger trans activists feel in your state, the freer your state is." Let that sink in. They are explicitly celebrating that people feel unsafe. They're cheering that children are afraid. Now, these same people will tell you they're motivated by love. They'll tell you that they want to, quote, protect the children. But the thing about love versus fear is that love is expansive, while fear is restrictive. Love seeks to include, fear seeks to exclude. Love wants all children to feel safe. Fear only wants certain children to feel safe. And that's the moral test they're failing. They claim to protect children while celebrating when children actually flee in fear. They claim to love families while cheering when families are torn from their homes and communities. This isn't love. This is hatred wearing a mask of compassion. It's evil believing itself to be good. Here's what's really happening. The protect the children narrative only applies to children who fit their arbitrary checklist of acceptable characteristics. Cisgender, straight, from families that conform to their preferred religious and cultural norms, those children deserve protection. But transgender children? Those children can be afraid. Those children can suffer. Those children don't count as real children deserving of protection. The label trans dehumanizes these kids to them. Iris Turmelle isn't seen as an innocent 15-year-old girl just trying to live her life peacefully. She's seen as an agent of corruption, a threat, a devil. The humanity gets erased the moment the label gets applied. And this selective application of protection reveals what's really going on. It's not about children at all. It's about enforcing conformity to their preferred social order. It's about maintaining their anxiety buffer system, their psychological defense against the terror of living in a world where people might be different from them. So just about everyone out there listening knows that I'm a transgender woman, and being transgender absolutely sucks. No one would choose this for themselves. No one would choose to be in a society that forces you to wait well into adulthood to transition, after which you can never have the body that you should have had all along. And this brings us to the medical discussion that these people love to use as a weapon. They talk about protecting children from puberty blockers and hormone therapy as if they're saving kids from some terrible fate. But what they refuse to acknowledge is that time doesn't stop. When you prevent a trans child from accessing medical care, you're not preserving some neutral state. You're forcing them through a puberty that will cause irreversible changes that they'll have to live with forever. Every day that passes is a choice. And by preventing treatment, you're making that choice for them, even though you don't have to live with the consequences. And regret is possible with all outcomes. A person might regret transitioning. They might regret not transitioning. They might regret not transitioning sooner. We don't know in advance what the right choice is for any individual person. But what we do know is that it's arrogant and insane to try to make that choice for other people when we aren't the ones who have to live with the consequences. And they can't hide behind appeals to nature or God's will while sitting in air-conditioned rooms. If nature's choice about sex is sacred and immutable, then nature's choice about room temperature should be as well. If human ingenuity can override nature's decision to make it hot outside, then human ingenuity can override nature's decision about biological sex. These appeals to natural law or divine authority only work if you're willing to live consistently by them. But these people aren't living in the wilderness without technology. They're selectively invoking natural law only when it supports their desire to control other people's bodies and other people's lives. The real question here is about freedom and choice. True libertarianism, true anarchism, is motivated entirely by love for all beings. I want liberty and peace for everyone. I don't want children to be afraid. Anyone who can't say the same thing, they're choosing fear over love. They're choosing control over freedom. Think about what choosing love would actually look like in this situation. It would mean trusting people to make their own decisions about their own bodies and lives. It would mean supporting families instead of driving them from their homes. It would mean wanting all children to feel safe and supported, not just the ones who conform to your preferred categories. It would mean recognizing that transgender people aren't threats to be eliminated, but human beings deserving of the same dignity and freedom as everyone else. But these people think that they're motivated by love while celebrating children's fear. They think they're protecting families while driving families away. They think they're defending freedom while advocating for government control over medical decisions. For transgender people, there's a disparity between how we feel inside and how our bodies appear. For these anti-trans activists, there's a disparity between how they think they feel, loving, protective, virtuous, and how they actually feel, fearful, controlling, exclusionary. Maybe if they could acknowledge that disparity in themselves, they would develop some compassion for the disparity that transgender people experience. And look, I know most of the people who choose fear over love, they're not listening to this podcast. Maybe some will. And for those who do, I want you to think about this choice between love and fear that you're making every day, often without realizing it. When you see a story about a family like the Turmelles being driven from their home, what is your first reaction? Is it relief that undesirable people are leaving? Or heartbreak that children are suffering? When you hear about transgender medical care, are you focused on controlling other people's choices? Or are you focused on supporting individual freedom and family autonomy? And when you encounter someone different from you, whether they're transgender or from a different religion or have different political views, do you respond with curiosity and compassion? Or do you respond with suspicion and hostility? These choices reveal who you really are, beneath all the rationalizations and rhetoric. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's celebration of people feeling in danger is just the mask slipping off. It's revealing what was always underneath, the desire to use fear and intimidation to control others. That's not libertarianism. That's authoritarianism with better marketing. Real libertarianism recognizes that your freedom ends where someone else's begins. It recognizes that government has no business making medical decisions for families. It recognizes that driving people from their homes through legislative intimidation is a form of violence. Real libertarianism chooses love, the expansive, inclusive love that wants freedom and safety for all people, not just the ones who look and think like you. This is why I describe libertarian anarchism as being motivated entirely by love for all beings. It's not about perfect theoretical systems or economic models. It's about the fundamental recognition that every person deserves to live their life free from coercion, free from fear, free from having other people's anxieties and prejudices imposed on them by force. That's what the Turmelle family was seeking. Just the freedom to live their lives peacefully, to raise their children safely, to access medical care without government interference. And they were driven away by people who claim to support those exact things. So here's my challenge to anyone listening. Pay attention. to the choices you're making between love and fear. Pay attention to whether your political positions actually increase freedom for all people, or if they just preserve your own comfort and control. Ask yourself, do I want all children to feel safe? Do I support family autonomy and medical freedom for everyone? Do I celebrate when people are driven from their homes, or does that break my heart regardless of who those people are? The answers to those questions will tell you whether you're choosing love or fear, and that choice, made day after day, interaction after interaction, policy position after policy position, determines what kind of world we're creating together. The Turmelle family is now in Maine trying to rebuild their lives and maintain hope for their daughter's future. They shouldn't have had to make that choice. In a truly free society, in a truly loving society, they would have been welcomed and supported wherever they chose to live. We can't change what happened to them, but we can choose love going forward. We can choose to create a world where no family has to flee their home because of who they are. We can choose to protect all children, not just the ones who fit our preferred categories. We can choose love every day, in every interaction, in every political position we take. It really is that simple.